right. So, still posting on social media about this live. You guys have to wait a bit because folks are still joining in. We'll wait for a bit and then we'll start. Meanwhile, you guys who have joined the live so far, welcome to the live. And you guys can tell me from where did you join? And also, are you on a mobile device or are you on uh, a laptop? Hey, Pratik, hi. So, I'm still waiting for all the posts to happen in our WhatsApp communities. And also, let me get rid of this like share banner that is going on laptop from Kolkata. Nice. Okay. All right. So, Pratik is in our WhatsApp group. Good, good. Good to know. I see. Also, let me know if the stream video and audio is working fine. We'll just start in a bit once we have all the links posted. So we have posted in LinkedIn, Instagram, WhatsApp groups, but not in WhatsApp announcement. So we're just waiting for that. Sometimes what happens in WhatsApp is you post it, it goes into processing mode for a very long time, and then it gets posted because it has to send to like 2000 odd people right at the same time. So I'm just waiting for that to happen. All right. Hi Noor. Hi Pratik. Hi K. I don't know why you have named yourself K, just to be anonymous, I guess. Right. Okay, thanks Pratik for letting me know. So both audio and video quality is awesome. Cool, cool, cool. Janvi Khanna is here. Hi Janvi. Yeah, I guess a lot of people are here and we can get started. Just a minute. Okay, stands for Kajal. Okay, okay. I know Kajal. She is very prompt in helping the community out wherever possible. So recently we did a survey for the community to understand whether it is helping or not helping, where can we improve and all. So Kajal was one of the first person to share her feedback about the community. So yeah, we remember. All right, cool. So okay, let me get rid of this like share thing. Interesting. I forgot where it was. I think the interface has changed a bit. Okay, now. Right. Okay, cool. All right. So, welcome to the stream, everyone. And today's guest is Anudish. He is from Microsoft. He has been working there since 2021 and he is working in the search team and also has been working on Copilot. And I know Anudish from NID days because we were batchmates and he was in Universal Design. I was in Interaction Design. And my first conversation with Anudish was something around e-cell. So I was interested in understanding if anybody is interested in starting their own business and is interested around business creation and all. And that's where I had the first discussion with Anudish. And he told me why it cannot work out in a setup like NID. And that's where I learned that okay, this guy is like one of the smarter guy in that cohort. So that's how I came to know about him. And he was also, like I said in the last stream, he was also the person who referred me in Microsoft. I didn't get through Microsoft, but he was definitely one of the first guy to refer me there. And yeah, so we are going to discuss about AI ethics and UX design, and a lot of intersection points between these three items, that is ethics plus UX, ethics plus AI, and AI plus UX. So yeah, here it is. Anudish, over to you.
Hey everyone, and of course, hey Bharat. That was a very kind introduction, and I didn't know that you remembered that, and I never had an idea that that had that impression on you. So yeah,
Yeah, because I remember the setup. Okay, we two were sitting in a balcony, and it was evening, and it was getting dark. It was very romantic if you picturize that way. but but we were discussing why such a thing cannot take place in a 2 year course. It can happen in a 4 year course, but not in a 2 year course. Talking about courses, right? Anudish has one of the most decorated resume if you ever find one for a designer, right? So he has done mechanical engineering from BIT. He has done uh, a course in product management from IIM Indore, and he has done masters in universal design, right? And then you have worked at SAP, and now you are working at Microsoft. Even in SAP, your project was somewhere around AI, right? It was AI power tool, and now also Microsoft pretty much is one of the lead in all the AI conversation that is happening. So you're pretty much like you have covered all the three grounds. You have engineering, you have product management, you have design. All the three things are there. Maybe in future you will do analytics as well, I feel.
yeah, my
And
career philosophy is to go buzzword to buzzword.
uh, nice. um, so yeah, I mean, good to know that you have such a decorated resume, right? um, I just wanted to know, like, how has your experience been after NID? Because we didn't get so much time to catch up after NID. So how was it after NID?
I think, like most other designers, as soon as you get out of that beautiful design bubble where everything is nice and jolly, and you are like, yes, research is important, yes, this is how we are going to design, and all of that jazz, you get kicked into this new environment where everything is like different, but not in a nice way if you don't, if you're not willing to adopt.
Hmm.
So early on, what I realized right out of NID was if you don't adapt, it'll be a very awkward time. So the first thing that I had to adapt was Figma itself. So I was a very Adobe kind of guy, and everything has to be Adobe.
Hmm.
Huge fan of XG at the time. And they were like, well, we are going to be using Figma, and our team was like the first one to start using that in SAP.
Hmm.
So getting used to that, getting used to the fact that design process will never be like, you won't ever get 10 weeks to follow, like empathize and like define and ideate and all of that. You have to kind of mix and match all of that.
Yeah.
And one thing that resonated really well, and that kind of reflects in what I ended up what I had to do eventually, was that I heard somewhere, like someone like Mozart or Picasso, some great guy like that said ki you have to master the rules, know the rules like a pro to break them like an artist. And
Oh, okay.
that kind of kicked in at some point where I was like, "Ki, theek hai, I learned design process very well. Now let me
Yeah.
not be anal about it, and let me try to figure out how can we mix and match and modularize that."
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a fun experience. And in SAP, I was fortunate enough to be a part of this startup within SAP. So
Hmm.
these guys, this particular team, Brilliant Hire, came out of a hackathon
Okay.
like 2 years before I had joined in, and they had kind of gotten all of their product metrics in place, and they were at a point when they were like, "Ki, yeah, now we probably need like a full time designer to work on things." So that is where I joined, and being a startup, we had like freedom to not follow SAP guidelines, not follow those processes, and
Nice.
kind of do like sprints and stuff. So a lot of people warned me, like, if you're going into a corporate right after college, you'll probably just end up like laid back, ki theek hai, things take time and all of that.
Mm,
But we used to work in 1 week sprints when I had joined, and
interesting.
holy shit, that was crazy. And yeah, once we had delivered a product to a certain level, and we were going from, we had covered 0 to 10 ground, and the next step was going 10 to 100. That is when some of the initial members of the team decided to disband, and that was when I started seeking opportunities. And again, I got into Microsoft, and again, I would say, uh, the team that I got into, and then the way it reorged and everything, I think it was a series of strokes of luck.
I
And
see.
yeah, I got to work on Copilot quite early on. Although the funny part is that I don't work on any core. I work on core Microsoft M365, but my work mainly involves bringing third party tools into that, third party knowledge into that. So
Got
you
it.
can ask me more about Jira and ServiceNow, but less about Microsoft stuff. So that's just a funny placement where I am. But yeah, uh, uh, consider myself really lucky to be placed where I am.
Amazing, amazing, man. So, for the two, three people who don't know what Microsoft Copilot is, can you tell like what does it do exactly?
So, to the two, three people who haven't heard AI so many times that their ears are numb, and haven't heard of all the jazz that's been happening there, Copilot is basically a chat based AI powered bot that helps you do your work fast and easily.
Hmm.
So you can probably take a long video, which this is going to be, and tell Copilot to summarize it. It'll tell you like points and all of those stuff. And then there are other stuff that we are also building. So I work on the enterprise side of things, where we essentially work for, we build the Copilot for companies and kind of optimize for those use cases. So it's basically Chat GPT, but by Microsoft.
Got it. Is it like a better version of what we used to have? You remember there was this one Clip Champ or
Clippy.
something like that? Clip,
Clippy.
Clippy, right? So I used to love that feature, right? Like it was so engaging for me as a child that you can make them dance or something, or you can basically change from clip to something else to something else, and then you can ask them question and they would be able to give you, some answer.
Some answer, yeah.
So yeah. So is it still there, or now it's all Copilot?
So Clippy is a legacy thing that for anyone in Microsoft or outside, it's a very beloved part of whatever, like from childhood to adulthood or whatever,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
whatever point they witnessed it. And internally, in our hearts, Copilot is Clippy V Next or Clippy on steroids, or the Clippy that got great again. So
Nice.
yeah, you can think of it like, in essence, it is the same thing. It does the
Hmm.
same thing. It is there to help you. It is there to like make things happen for you, and it is really, really, really good at it. And now you have Copilot in every surface. Initially, that was just for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and primarily Word, but now it is there on every surface. So when you use Copilot on Excel, you have that kind of experience, and you, it does very specific things that are there for Excel, and
Hmm.
so on for, and so on and so forth for PPT and Word. And then when you're using on let's say this thing on web, then that is a very tailored experience. So all of these things are there.
Got it. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I'll come to the question that everybody would like to ask, right? Which is, since you are in the middle of pretty much the most important AI company in the world, do you think uh, designers are going to lose their job to AI, or what do you think about that?
I think nowadays, if you see, like almost everything that people are discussing has AI in it. and
Exactly.
we are numb listening to AI, 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 AI. And I think we'll be doing that a lot because, well, there's no escaping it.
Yeah.
So, will AI take over the world? I would say it already has, with us talking about it all the time. Uh, will it take your jobs? That is the serious question. And I think there is a fine line. So, before I actually get into the specifics of it and what role ethics plays there, there's this anecdote about ATM machines that I'm sure some of us have heard here.
Hmm.
But essentially, back then, the teller was one of the most prestigious jobs that you could have in bank.
Okay.
So you were that person who was maintaining books, who was keeping track of things. You were that person who was the face of the bank. If you went to a branch and you said, "Ki, okay, I want to know how much money is in my account," teller would tell you. And that was kind of the role. If you wanted to draw money, teller would see how much money you have, deduct that, keep that honest job. Ki, okay, if you are taking 200 rupees out of your account, it will say minus, it will write, he will write minus 200, and then he'll do all of that thing. So can you imagine the power and the responsibility that individual had?
Mm.
And it was one of the most sought after jobs at the time. And then when automatic teller machine or ATM was invented, how do I say, त्राही त्राही मच गई. We were like, क्या हो रहा है? What is happening? Like, my job will go away. What will happen? There were people who fought it. They were like, we will not allow this. Machines will take over and all of that. There were people who embraced it in a good way and in a bad way. So the bad way were like, you know what? Everything is ending. Let's just give up. They just left. And then there were people who embraced it in a good way. So they took some time to understand what this machine is, what it can do, and they figured out, कि, okay, if it is going to be doing these jobs, then what are the jobs that I could do? And essentially, what that machine did was this dumb labor work, although very respectable and although something that requires a very high degree of trust, still dumb labor work, was relegated to the machine. And people were free to create all of these financial products, tools, and services, insurance, and what so many things that are out there. And
Yeah.
of course, scams as well. I think scams are like the epitome of human creativity. Like, so,
Yeah.
um, so that is the same anecdote that kind of metaphorizes. Oh my god, I'm throwing English like anything. So into the AI field, and that is what we have to do at the end of the day. We can keep arguing whether it'll take our jobs or not, but rather than doing that, let's understand what exactly this particular thing brings for us and what it frees us to do. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it is so damn powerful. And designers, also being so creative individuals, tend to find the shortest path to the destination. But a lot of times, the shortest path may not be the best path for you. So
Yeah.
this is where the ethics part comes in. So I am not going to preach any Gandhian principles that we should be ethical because Gandhi ji ne bola tha India and note pe bhi Gandhi ji and all of that. नहीं. The place where I'm coming from is purely selfish. The
Mm.
sole reason you should be ethical is because it is the smart thing to do. And it'll still guide you to take the shortcut, but it'll also tell you which shortcut to take and which shortcut to avoid.
Mm.
So that is the essence of how ethics comes in play. Now,
Got it.
elaborate on that. Like, if you think from the point of view of design process itself, so that kind of breaks down into two parts. You have design, sorry, you have the problem and you have the solving part of it. And when we talk about the problem part, understanding it and defining it, we have so many tools. We have like primary research methodologies, secondary research methodologies. We have ways to define it and kind of document it. We have empathy maps, we have user journey mapping, and so many things. Now, back in college, you might also remember, like, some geniuses used to first devise the solution and then
Oh
work their
yeah.
way back. Okay, this is what the user is. because
Totally.
this is what my solution is.
Yeah.
And then they would be like, okay, this is what the empathy map would look like, and this
Yeah.
is what they would probably say, and this is the journey mapping, and all of that shit was made up.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of those folks were like, we kind of were like, wow, such great work. I don't know, will I ever be able to do that? Because they focused on like the visual part of it and everything, and they did a
Yeah.
great job at that.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, their solution was flawed because it was not really much of a solution to the problem that they were solving.
Hmm.
So it is fine when you're doing like a case study that is isolated, but any person with half a brain would be able to catch it like in mere seconds.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Yeah.
times you might get questions like, "Ki, what should we do so that our portfolio is good?"
Yeah.
But I mean, firstly, stay true to the thing. Like,
Yeah,
problem
actually,
is,
I have like addressed it in one of my videos as well. Like, there is no need to be, fake at your design process, because when you become real and when you tell that, okay, this was my constraint, this is what the PM said, and they dominated the conversation and they wanted this to be in a certain way, and that's the constraint, right? Whatever, if you tell the truth, then that is more respected in the industry, because they know that, okay, your process cannot be that ideal of a process that is followed in a design school or something like that, right? So
hmm,
nobody follows the entire design process in that is taught in the college, right? So which is why we should always tell, like, what exactly did we follow, right? And
yeah.
whatever the constraint is, we just call it out, okay, this is the constraint, right? So I feel, I mean, yeah, one part is not to definitely fake whatever your design process is. In fact, there is no particular design process, right? So yeah.
At the end of the day, design process is just like a simplification or a templatization of what a person should do to
Yeah,
solve a problem.
exactly.
Ultimately, you just have to understand what the problem is, who is facing it, in what scenario they are facing it,
Yeah,
and then brainstorm on ideas to solve it, see what are the different options you have, and then decide on one based on all the constraints and figure
exactly.
that out. Now,
Yeah.
how you do that, that just varies. You don't have to actually follow the design process word for word. But again, I would not hope that early career people or people who are learning designs would quote us on this and be like, haha, we are doing
uh,
whatever. First you have to learn the rules. Only then you
Correct.
can break them.
Yeah.
So that is where I'm coming from actually. Like, if the PMs are saying that this is like, if they are overwhelming you and you're suggesting that this is the right thing to do, the immediate next thing that they would rightly so ask is, what is the proof? Why do you suggest this is the case? And this
Yeah.
is where all of the research work comes in. And research may not be actual primary and secondary research, it could just be your understanding of the problem itself, the work that you did in understanding the problem. Now, if you did that using ChatGPT or Copilot for that matter, that is where you're kind of setting yourself, setting a trap for yourself.
Hmm.
So now what happens is, there are coming back to the AI and if it'll take your job or not. So there are, like, as designers or as just people in general, when we look at the capabilities of these tools, they are almost magical. You ask them for something, they'll give you like a nice formatted reply. See, Maitri has posted that the meeting summary generated by Copilot is something that she absolutely loves. And that
Yeah.
is a phenomenal thing. And people are like, wow, I can do so much. So people tend to start doing everything on it. So
Hmm.
there are certain things that you as human need to do with your human intelligence, which still is far superior than artificial intelligence. And then maybe use AI or chat GPT or copilot to do the heavy lifting. By that, what I mean is, if you want to learn about the user, it is you who has to first figure out who that user would be. You can use ChatGPT or Copilot to get some insights on, ki, okay, I am doing this project. Can you help me understand what should I be looking at to learn more about fintech? Then it'll
Hmm.
tell you this. Then you have to do the work of figuring that out. Ki, okay, what are, let's say, mutual funds? How do they work and all of that? So who would be an expert in mutual fund, who I could interview? And that work, you can maybe have like a conversation with a co-pilot, and that'll work out well for you. But then it is you who has to decide what you want to ask, what you want to learn from them. And then when you're having that conversation with them, you cannot go to chat gpt and say, "Ki, okay, give me a list of 10 questions that I can ask." No, you have to use your human brain to think, okay, I am meeting this person, these are the things I want to learn, and then let that conversation flow, get those insights. Now this
Yeah.
is where you can probably use the various softwares that are available to transcribe that conversation that you had. And once you have that conversation penned down, then you can put that into Copilot, ask it to summarize, ask it to do that heavy manual labor work
Hmm.
that you are just too good to do. Like, humans are better than all of that manual work. I say, put yourself on a pedestal and then be
Yeah.
like, ये मैं नहीं करूँगा, and relegate that to chat gpt. And then what you'll see is, it'll give you insights, it'll give you ideas, it'll pull out patterns and all of those things. So what machines and these AI models are really good at is identifying patterns. And the other side of the coin of, oh, this thing is working. So yeah, so one side of it is identifying patterns, the other side of it is identifying the outliers. So you'll get all of that information nicely structured. Something that would have taken you an hour would take you
Right.
like 15 minutes with a good quality prompt. And
Yeah.
this is the distinction that you have to use whenever you are doing any kind of research, and that is the kind of ethics that I am here to talk about. The ethics of respecting the user enough to give it a human touch, to communicate with them, get insights from them, and then build on that. You're just
Hmm.
using one of these machines as a secretary. So if
Yeah.
people who have seen Mad Men, you know what secretaries typically do, other than what they did with them. But yeah, and that is what
Got it.
Copilot or anything should be for you.
Got it. That's pretty detailed, right? Um, like I was also thinking about, will AI take your job? I was thinking like practically how I go about it, which is will AI take my job or not, is I feel that what if AI takes my job, right? So so how will I prepare for it, right? That's what I think about, which is I'll act like AI will take my job in 5 years. So
Mhm.
so then whatever I need to do right now, which is be friendly with AI, which is basically understanding AI to the core, trying to integrate everything that is AI into my work flow wherever it is possible and wherever it is needed, more important than that, right? And obviously, like, keeping ourselves in that pedestal, which is we feel like, okay, AI is still a tool, a helper tool, and not exactly like a boss for us, which is like, for example, I was just discussing this with one of my UX writers. I was telling them that why are you going to each and every screen and correcting where we are making mistakes? You already have your guidelines that you have set up. Why don't you keep just working on that refining of that guideline, right? And then feed it to AI, and then just put our screens there, and then the AI should be following the guideline that you have created and should tell that, okay, use this word, you don't use this word, and so on. Like, for example, we design for UK market, right? And there certain words are more prominent than other words. Like, for example, a card reader, a POS machine is pretty much referred to as POS device, right? So wherever we write card reader, sometimes we Indians would be calling it POS, card reader, and so on, right? So every time UX writer has to come and tell us that, hey, don't use this, use this word. I'm like, okay, why don't you just write it down in your document? Obviously no human is going to read the document, we know humans. So so we'll just do this thing, we'll create a Figma plugin and we will feed your document into that chatbot, and then we'll make sure that the chatbot reads our all the screens, follows whatever guideline you have provided. So I was thinking in that way, like that would reduce so much of effort of going through screen one by one. Versus, you being in that pedestal wherein you write the rules of the game, the AI will go and correct whatever is required, right? So basically keep yourself above AI and make them work like how they should be working, rather than dictating us what to do. We should be telling them what we need. So yeah,
This
completely.
reminds me of this awesome quote. Again, I don't know, I have something with quotes. I love them. So there's this one which says that the machine is a great servant but a terrible master.
Hmm.
So that's like something that should be etched on the top of the wo jo, you have that little space, the border on your laptops. हाँ, वहाँ पे लिख लो. So again, I think you kind of in a very concise way communicated the essence of the conversation itself. Like, make AI do or machines do the heavy lifting or the manual work. Ki you have to go through each screen, read it, and then figure out if this is the right word and all of that. And that should be just more than enough. But the actual person who is setting the guidelines, actual person who is doing all of that, should always be an actual person, not a machine.
Yeah.
And uh, I think that pretty much sums it up. So if you, again, at any point of time, let's say you're trying to figure out what your problem statement is, you are like trying to draft a problem statement, or you're trying to define your problem, you can definitely go to Copilot and ask it to make it concise, give you a structure, or kind of write some summary about it. But you can never make it write the problem statement for you. And
Hmm.
even if you want to do that, there will be a lot of back and forth that you have to do with it to
Yeah.
actually land on the correct thing. So
Yeah.
whatever is the intelligent work that has to be done, that has to be done by the human itself. And
Got it.
the day you start doing all of these intelligent, like making the machine do the intelligent work, at some point your manager will also think he, uh, like you are thinking, ki, okay, why should I do all of this if I can just make Copilot do that? Sooner or later, your manager will be like, why should I have this guy when everything is being done by Copilot?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you should maintain your value. And I think copywriters are like people, again, I think most directly, like in like they are first in line when it comes to threat from AI. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like, you have to focus on writing the guidelines, writing the fundamentals, and telling AI what to do when it comes to the heavy work.
Yeah.
But if you just tell AI to write copy for you, I think it is not going to look pretty.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I feel a lot of the time UX writers uh you know get that constant, which is, if I write so much, then people will not read it, right? If I be very particular about my UX writing document and guidelines, then people will not read it. What is the benefit of doing that? But
Hmm.
then in the era of AI, you should be writing as much as possible, right? Like, write like fucking book. Right? Write a freaking book for this company and keep on refining it, because AI can read as much as you provide them, right? So you basically don't get that constant key. People who will be using it will not be reading it. They don't need to read it anymore. So I feel, yeah, uh,
Yeah.
when there is this one thing which is, AI is coming in between what UX writers do today versus, you know um, versus what they can do going forward. I feel for most of the time, so this is just UX writing, but for most of other jobs as well, it seems like this is the way forward, which is, you know you define the rules of the game, right? You
Hmm.
be in that space where you define the rule, and then let AI do some of those manual labor stuff. I
Hmm.
think one of the most, I don't know, for me, one of the most hated manual labor job is doing a handoff to developers, like writing this is required, that is required. Like, someone just to do it, man. I don't want to do it. So that is also there. But let's come back to ethical, the
Hmm.
word ethical, right? So what according to you is ethics? Because I feel ethics and rules are kind of different, right? So what according to you is like ethical in design?
So I think being ethical fundamentally just means respecting the user.
Hmm.
And ultimately, it is that respect that will guide you to make the right decisions when you're going forward. Now, what that does is like it is ethical to make sure that the person whom you are interviewing is firstly comfortable being interviewed. Secondly, there are all of these scenarios where the person may not be, like, we want to take a video of them, we want to get a recording of the conversation that we are having with them. And this is, of course, from the point of view of UX research. Um, you want to do all of those things, but sometimes we kind of hesitate to ask for permission because we might get denied. But a lot of times, what I've noticed is asking for permission kind of opens up another area where you kind of understand how comfortable they are with you, and it gives you space to kind of make them comfortable. In some cases, that kind of works wonders. Like if you are asking for permission, that person already knows that you respect them,
Yeah.
and that respect translates to them being candid with you. So that is one aspect of how ethics play out in the work. Then
Yeah.
when it comes to reporting of that information, reporting or even documenting of that information, we are often like, we just want, as soon as we get a design problem or anything, uh, how do I say it? As soon as we get a problem to solve, we immediately think of a solution, and we are incredibly biased towards that solution, so much so that even the work that we are doing to understand it, that gets tainted. So
Yeah.
again, the ethical thing to do per se here would be to not hold that too strongly. Have that in one place and maybe see if you can validate or invalidate it. So
Yeah.
what that would do is that will help you go in the right direction. Let's say the first thought that came to your mind, the first solution that came to mind, you were so biased towards that, you kind of did everything, proved it all right, and you did everything in that favor, and finally you had some solution put out, worked out by engineers, and then as soon as it goes into the market, it crashes.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what, like, the gap, the ethical gap that happened there, you got
Yeah.
too, how do I say, carried away by making sure that your solution goes ahead. You forgot about the user, you forgot about the problem, you forgot everything. And just because of that, you missed out on the, you dropped the ball simply.
Yeah.
So
But so you
yeah,
mentioned about these interviews, right, with real users. But then there is this new concept that is coming up, which is synthetic users, right? So have you come across that term, synthetic users?
yeah, I think it's a very interesting way to put it. Again, I think when we talk about personas itself,
Yeah.
persona is like the pre AI era synthetic user that we all used to create.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
And even while creating the persona, we all did that mistake of, rather than the persona being representative of the people whom we are solving it for, it became an imaginary version of who we want it, who would like our solution. कि
Mm.
मैंने कहा यार, this is the right way to do it, and this guy would like it. That guy is imaginary. Now, again, it is a very powerful tool and it is a double-edged sword. So if you don't use it well, it'll cut you only.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what you have to do. Like once you have, let's say, taken 10 interviews, you have the transcripts, you were in Copilot, you did all the, you made Copilot do all the heavy lifting, you have all the insights, and then you kind of carefully crafted a persona that has to be a representative of your user, and then you fed that to Copilot and told ki, okay, this is finally this person that I have created, that would essentially uh, be a representative of whom I'm solving it for, and I want you to be that person. So
Hmm.
the synthetic person that we created, we are giving it life through the medium of LLM or Copilot simply.
Yeah.
And if we follow the like right process, ensure that we are one second, yeah, and we are making sure that we are respecting the user enough to keep that them in mind, getting the right insights, putting them honestly, then the synthetic person would be a very natural representation of
Yeah.
the actual user. And you can actually have a conversation with it and say, "Ki, okay, if hypothetically this was the scenario, how would you react?" And you would get a very close to accurate response. Again, with
Yeah.
AI, I think uh, there's always that warning written, right? Like, this is AI generated content, proceed with
Yeah.
caution. So I will also put that
Yeah.
uh, disclaimer here. But yeah, so again, at the end of the day, all AI tools are good and all AI tools are bad.
Yeah.
They only and only depend on how you are using it, and the
Right.
differentiator here is your ethical conduct.
Yeah. So for people who don't know what the synthetic user is, this is like you create a dummy user. So you ask AI to create a dummy user persona for your business by studying all the habits, or all the quantitative information about your user, how they are using your product, right? For example, you must be having a lot of funnels, different funnels, different designs. So, and you would be tracking a lot of clicks and where the mouse pointer is moving or whatever user is clicking, going back and blah blah whatnot, right? And then it will also track all your design changes and how user is, behaving differently with your different designs, right? So once you feed all this quantitative data to uh, to this AI to create a persona, they will come up with a persona, and usually they are like dynamic in nature. They would always be getting trained over time, right? Obviously, there is a lot of money that will be burnt when you keep training for things like this. But the idea is that I think some companies are experimenting with this idea, which is how about we create synthetic users, and then instead of doing usability testing studies, we just show our design, like 2 3 design we'll create, we'll show it to the AI, tell them ki run it through our synthetic users and tell us whether they will like A, B or C, and then that's how we would be using it. So this is one way, probably our design process could be augmented in future. But yeah, I mean, definitely it's not going to be only trained by synthetic or quantitative data. Rather, I feel a lot of qualitative data in future would also be added to the same persona, and basically it will be a smart persona rather than what we usually create, right? Usually we create this one persona thinking that okay, this is that person and blah blah blah, all these properties, right? I believe in future that property is going to change over time as we get more and more uh, idea about how our users are perceiving our product, are using our product, and so on.
I think eventually the human reaction would be the wild card to everything. So
Hmm.
no matter how much AI you use in your process, in your work, in your engineering, in your design, whatever, you are at the end of the day going to be selling to humans only.
100%, yeah.
Even if AI ends up ruling us, they are not going to buy shit from us. And the world works when people buy things. So
Yeah.
again, I mean, sure, the synthetic persona can become like crazy advanced, and we can even give it like a body or whatever, like go full Ultron. But ultimately, how a person reacts to something, where do they get confused, where do they get stuck, that is something that will always remain human.
Yeah.
So again, I think we need to always set an expectation of what the AI could accurately tell us and what level of accuracy there would be.
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
sure, it may be able to tell you, okay, between A, B, and C, A would be most preferred by, let's say, 90%. So, that 90% should be in our mind. Ki, okay, it may not be the 100% case, and it's very likely that if you show it to 100 users, 100 actual users, you might get different results. But again, whatever helps us take decisions faster.
Yeah.
And again, I think we have to accept the fact that AI will augment the jobs. It will open up space for us to do more things. Like even with the copywriter example that you gave, it is going to open up space for a copywriter to do more intelligent work and free themselves from this manual work. The
Exactly.
same thing will happen to us as well. So the more intelligent, the better we are able to define the synthetic user, the better insights we will get. But we cannot always completely fully rely ki ha, the synthetic user will always be right. So
Yeah.
that is a discretion that we need to have in our minds.
Mm. So talking about this thing, right? So we are talking about ethics. Why do you think like this is a very important time to talk about ethics?
Uh, as soon as AI models became popular, especially the image generation ones, there was so much hoo hullabaloo about AI essentially stealing your work and then just
Mm.
giving it back to you in a different flavor. And I think that has been the case in human history since forever. Like, there's some good work that happens, and then there's copies of copies of copies. And AI is the master of that. So again, at the end of the day, it becomes very disrespectful to the actual artists who are creating it. Like, even like when we are working on something and we don't get the due credit of it, it pisses us off.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it's just something that devalues the worth of human effort. So in the world of AI, making the right decisions, making the right ethical, like doing the right ethical things is important, because at the end of the day, it is our respect, our own
Yeah.
work that we are respecting by doing that to others. So it's kind of like similar to how the whole environment thing comes in mind, like, right?
Hmm.
The global warming is happening, the environment is dying, but the earth is not gonna die. It will survive. The temperatures are not rising for the earth, they are rising for us. We can keep polluting, and then ultimately we will be wiped out.
Yeah.
And COVID showed us that ki ha, theek hai, in like 1 year or so, it kind of started healing in whatever forms it did. So again, we are doing it for ourselves, ultimately. Secondly, with so much data getting processed at such high pace, and with access to everyone, like you can go through an excel of like 1,000 rows and get insights from it in mere seconds. And when all of that data is being handled here and there and everywhere, the point comes about personal data and privacy.
Yeah.
So again, at the end of the day, it is humans who are designing these products and these solutions. And if we do not respect the privacy of our end users, eventually it will be us who will be paying the price of it. So
Yeah.
again, I think this is the time when everything has gotten supercharged, and the consequences of our tiniest decisions are multifold. So
Yeah.
more than anything, I think if you're bored hearing everything about AI, I think you should get bored listening to people like myself talk about ethics and why they are important, because yeah, I think our literal future depends on it.
Yeah. You talked about privacy, right? So when Figma AI was launched, everybody got excited. Okay, Figma AI, Figma AI. But then in one day, everybody realized that maybe our data is not safe. Like for example, maybe we can trust a company like Figma, but a lot of people were not trusting a company like OpenAI, for example, right?
Mhm.
Because again, Figma doesn't have their own powerful AI, right? It is always going to use somebody else's AI, and which is where I think Adobe is slightly at an advantage as a creative tool, because they pretty much have their own AI and then they can talk about multiple things. But Adobe has their own problems. Once they updated their terms and condition, that's a separate thing. We'll not talk about Adobe, but let's talk about that episode with Figma AI, right? Which is and I want to know from Microsoft point of view as well, how are people responding to it? Because the one of the reason why we said we don't want Figma AI is because we felt that our corporate data, whatever is unreleased designs and unreleased whatnot ideas, right, would be leaked to AIs, right? For example, let's say I am a Uber competitor, and Uber has basically turned on their Figma AI, and then all of the Uber design has been, you know, gone up to OpenAI, and then I just go there and write create me a app like Uber for 2024 market, and suddenly it will just bring in everything that it got from Uber to me, right?
Mm.
Which is why a lot of people were very terrified about, giving their data, especially the corporate unreleased data, to OpenAI, for example, right? But then we have always given data to Microsoft. We have always given data to Google, to Apple, because this laptop, right? This is by Apple, right? This interface, the chat interface that we are using, it is owned by, let's say, Microsoft or Slack, right? So how is it that we trust these companies with our data but not, trust OpenAI? Have you like faced any such issues with Microsoft bringing in AI into a lot of their products? Are people complaining about privacy there as well?
Well, I think that is a very pertinent question. Um, so I cannot speak for other companies, but I can definitely speak for Microsoft from my own experience. And of course, whatever I'm saying is not a statement by company, but it is a statement that I am making based on my own experience in the company. So fundamentally, Microsoft runs on trust, and it is known for privacy, it is known for compliance, it is known for security that it gives to its user and especially its enterprise customers. So fundamentally, whatever thing we are working on, sure, at the exploration phase we go berserk, we are like, sure, we'll get all the data, we'll get all the information, and we'll do it like this.
Yeah.
And then there's a huge degree of grounding that happens at every level. The higher we go to the LTs, the leadership team, the more that conversation gets grounded into the fact that, okay, is this even correct in the from the point of view of the privacy of the users? Is it keeping the system secure? And a lot of times there is work that we do that has to be completely changed or augmented, or even in some cases scrapped, because it is not adhering to the strict privacy principles that Microsoft follows. So sure, you may get a better user experience in maybe another place or whatever, but I think authoritatively, Microsoft will always be that company that takes care of your data the most. Now, when it comes to like your point about, we are trusting your Googles and Apples and Microsofts of the world with your data, but why should we not trust AI models with your data? So the simple answer to that is, there is no way that I could maybe do a Google search that says, imagine that I am Bharatapat. Now, imagine that Bharat is trying to log into his Google account. What would he type? And then it dumbly, like with its all artificial intelligence, will go be like, okay, this is the ID, this is the password. That is like a thing that's basically impossible.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like the example that you cited, one can actually go to Figma and write ki, imagine that you are a designer in Uber, design an app, and it will
Yeah.
actually give you the right result. So it is not as much about feeding information as it is about retrieving information.
Hmm.
And by design, it is very easy to retrieve the wrong information or the right information in wrong hands as
Yeah.
compared to the other places.
Yeah, I saw one meme. I don't know if it's a meme or actually a good strategy, but somebody on Twitter was saying that what I'll do is I'll create fake big companies and I'll create bullshit designs and I'll train Figma AI on it. Like I'll say that this is how search works, and then bullshit search he will design, and then that will be uploaded. So he was like, okay, this is how I'll fight against AI. So
Mm.
so I found that quite, interesting strategy to fight against AI. But
See,
yeah.
this is coming from a person. Definitely, I don't know who said it. I don't know anything about them, but I can say one thing: they know what AI is fundamentally, and to like disclose that in this forum, it is merely advanced pattern recognition, nothing else.
Yeah.
So it is what you teach it to be. So if you tell ki a car is essentially a banana, it will believe it. and you
Yeah.
tell that multiple times, you can gaslight AI into believing something that is not true. So
Yeah.
the fact that you can do that just shows how intelligent this AI is.
Hmm. That is true. Hmm. So we discussed about the ethics from process perspective. We have talked about privacy. Let's discuss it from the perspective of bias and transparencies as well. Right?
Hmm.
So, what's your take on biases and transparencies when it comes to using AI in an ethical way?
So back when I was working with the Brilliant Hire team, so basically the product that we are building was, if you want to hire, let's say, a designer, you create like a quick 3 to 5 question assessment, and you send it out to everyone. And then that assessment gets evaluated by real human experts, and they give star rating, they give tags, the labels to the answers, and they write comments if that's possible, and all of that happens. And then we kind of thought of what would it be if we trained an AI model on that.
Hmm.
And that is where this really intriguing discussion happened, like okay, if we did train an AI model on this particular information, would it be how would it be biased? So uh, that's kind of like if someone who is extremely strict, and if 5 extremely strict evaluators are the training data, then AI will become extremely strict. And we had to take explicit and very stern measures to ensure that there was no identifiable information of the candidates even to human evaluators, so that they don't have any bias, because a lot of times through names you can identify what this person is, like the gender, the racial identity, and so many things. So what happens is, AI models are trained on human data, and human biases and prejudices do translate exactly as they would. And I
Hmm.
think there were some really funny cases that ended up happening, like Google was showing like Chinese founding fathers and all of those things. And that
Yeah.
was, I think, the other end of the spectrum, like when you try to be too politically correct.
Yeah.
So again, I think from the bias point of view, right now most of the LLM data that is being that is used to train these AI models is from the Western world. It has the Western biases, and the more you play with it, the more you realize that you're essentially talking to a white man. So
Yeah.
that kind of is a problem there. But again, I think with LLM, basically LLM is a term that is used to reference Copilot and ChatGPT and all of these AI models and tools that are out there. LLM is basically large language model, so people can like Google it. I just clarified for the sake of this conversation. So now I forgot what I was talking about. So
Yeah.
basically, the good thing with LLM is that you can always ground them in the right way. So depend, like of course there will be some biases which would prevent AI from being a good judge.
Hmm.
If you want AI to be like replace judges in the near future, that would be a bad idea. You
Yeah.
would see the exact racial trends happening, and yeah, it's not gonna be good.
Yeah, I will
Yeah.
like every LLM has their own set of sensors, right? Like censorship has been done by whatever they felt were politically right, right? Like whichever company, whatever political wing they choose to for whatever thing, right? So they will choose that for their censorship, and
Mhm.
that's how we would get that biases in AI answers, right? Sometimes I also see the same thing with Chat GPT, like I'll write something very simple, straightforward, but then they will be super politically correct and then produce something like super shit. I'm like I'll have to write on that. Please uncensor yourself from being politically correct and write this, and that then I'll ask them to write things. So yeah, I mean that is something definitely there, which is biases of a company based on whatever politics they follow, whatever censorship rules they follow, and so on. Which is where I think Elon Musk's Grok is also slightly interesting, which is they are trying to make it as uncensored as possible. But then
Hmm.
again, this is like real world. You can't be a company without having censorship, right? So uh,
Hmm.
you will be nailed down very soon. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, interesting things are happening around the world of LLMs, especially related to these biases and censorships, right?
Yeah, I think we should know the place of AI. And again, the crudest way to put it, or the most uncensored way to put it, is treat it like a servant. You should not make it a master. So sure, you
Yeah.
can ask maybe Copilot to give you a summary of some news article that was given, but don't ask Copilot to give you opinions on what the politics of the country should be. Or
Hmm.
the worst case scenario, you're going to vote and you're like, okay, these are the 10 candidates, whom should I vote for? Don't do
Yeah.
that, please.
Yeah. So you brought in that master and servant thing, right? So I remember once I typed something around that, and ChatGPT told me that no, no, don't use this word like slave and master. I'm like, what? What kind of political correctness is that, right? So yeah, I mean, I have seen that happen as well. When certain political what do you call it, censorship has been fit into certain LLMs, you are bound to be censored by certain political uh, inclinations. So okay, that part is done. What do you think about, like, from a very basic, somebody who is just getting into design, right? What are some do's and don'ts for them in their design process, that they should follow when it comes to designing with the power of AI, or designing with or for AI, let's say.
So I'll tackle how the with part first and the for part later.
Okay.
So, how to pursue or learn design while also leveraging AI. So, again, I think a lot of it was already discussed in the talk, and in all the elaborate answers that I had, I think I covered that. But yeah, broadly, I think you should focus on, okay, sorry. Yeah, you should focus on understanding the process very deeply, understand why you are doing anything. So if someone says you have to empathize, you don't just have to learn कि, okay, empathy is some word and some fancy thing that kind of unlocks your doors in every conversation. But you should know what exactly is empathizing with a user means. So fundamentally, you have to put yourself in their place, figure out what problem they're facing, when they're facing, how they're facing, and then kind of materialize their experience into your work. So that is what you're trying to do. Now once you have understood the design process and each of the like logic behind everything well, then you are like you have the license to then use Copilot to figure out how to do the next thing. So like I said, all of the heavy lifting work, if you want to summarize some long document, do it. If you want to do even brainstorming, you can do like a little bit of a back and forth with the voice models that are now available. Okay, I am thinking about this new education policy that I'm working on. What are some historical precedents? And it can kind of dig information for you and give you. So think of it like 3 hours spent researching on Google, or let's say research paper that you found. So you could spend like an hour or so like going through that research paper, or you could just use Copilot to summarize that research paper and get those
Yeah.
insights for you. So again, I think purely from the do's and don'ts point of view, do like make it do the manual work. That is the best thing. Don't make it do the intelligent work, because one, it is not capable of doing it. It will always hallucinate and it will always make things up for you. And ultimately you are basically there is this saying in Hindi, right, andho mein kana raja.
Hmm.
You are basically, what you're doing is you are closing your own eyes and you are telling a machine to guide you which does not have eyes of its own. If you say ki, do you think we should go right, it will try to impress you and say yes, 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 you should go right. So
Yeah,
it is a very good servant, and a good part of being a good servant is like being that chaplus or kya bolte ho, chamcha thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that will happen. Now, when it comes to designing for AI, as designers, it's equally important to understand users as it is to understand the machinery that you're working with. So it was very easy in the tangible product world, because like if you were creating something out of thermocol, you had to understand the properties of thermocol. And when you had to do the same with carbon fiber, you had to first understand what carbon fiber is. The same applies to the intangible world, the UI and the UX thing that we keep working on. You have to spend time to understand the technology, sit with engineers, sit with knowledgeable PMs, ask them what is it that you are going to use to solve this problem. So first understand how these things work and what their capabilities are.
Hmm.
Now, fundamentally, the role of designers is to take complex technology and convert that into a chewable or a workable thing. For instance, photography, wave optics, ray optics, you have electronics, you have so many. Like if I
Yeah,
open NCRT and start reading out the index, all of those things are involved in photography. But design essentially is the camera that is handed to you, that complex technology in science converted into a chewable part. So understand what the technology is and then simplify things. But a lot of times we get carried away with AI ki haan, it'll do everything. So
hmm.
we kind of end up designing things that are so far-fetched, and they're just beyond the realm of AI, and they just end up getting tabled. So just
Yeah,
save yourself some time, understand what you are designing with and what you are building and what that thing will work on, and then you'll be able to build it. And most importantly, make sure that you have uh, two key considerations. One is the privacy and security of the users, and two is accessibility. So it is extremely important to make sure that whatever you are creating has to be universally accessible, and the more users you touch, the better it is. And with AI tools basically opening so many doors, there are new realms of accessibility that are yet to be unlocked. And I mean, if people want to work on something that is futuristic and want to kind of put their bets in something, I would say accessibility is the place to do that.
yeah. So I'll just double click on that part what you where you said, uh, you know uh, AI, you should know about what is the limitation of AI, right? Where it is good at, where it is not good at. And I feel if you don't know that part, and if you feel that whatever AI is giving me is gold standard, then whenever it is not producing good answer or right answers, we would never know, right? Because we don't know whether there is a good possibility for it to be wrong here or not. uh, for example, I remember I asked for some math question, right? I knew the answer because I solved it by hand, but then if I give it to AI, that was chat gpt 4.0 when it just released, right? It did not do good math at that time. It even did not do good code at that time. Now I think we have some more features added to it. I think now it can do some thinking and rethinking and so on. It can take days while generating answers. But yeah, if we don't know that chat gpt is not good at coding, or chat gpt is not good at doing maths, then sometimes what can happen is we would provide them an excel sheet of all the quant data that we have, and we'll tell them that okay, tell me what are all the different abcd, right, results. And they would give us some result, and we'll never know whether that result is right or wrong, because our job was supposed to understand that chat gpt is not good for maths. If we don't understand that, then we are the one who is creating problem, right? We should have actually done the math by our own hands, or maybe some other tools, calculator or whatnot, or maybe some other models of AI, right? I have heard that Gemini Pro is better than ChatGPT, at least for mathematics at one point of time. I don't know what is the current state right now, but at one point of time, Gemini Pro was better for maths and coding and such. logical stuff. Now
So
we have ChatGPT's better version. Yeah.
yeah, new models will keep coming, new
Yeah, yeah.
capabilities will
So
keep
new
coming.
capabilities again will have to be updated around, okay, what has now changed for ChatGPT, right? So yeah, I mean that is definitely one part which is we should be always updated about, okay, what can ChatGPT do better than Gemini, or Gemini do better than ChatGPT, and so on, and use them as such, right? Obviously, at one point of time, every AI is going to reach that level where the distinguishing factor is going to be almost negligible. But
Mm.
for the time being, since a lot of our work could be about summarizing and generating text, or analyzing quantitative data and so on in our design process, we should know the right AI to go to as well.
Yeah, that's always the case, and it keeps on updating. So it's
Yeah,
always, like you mentioned, always important to keep on track.
yeah,
And again, I think uh, it's very nice to imagine a future where AI is able to do everything. But if you see the trends of the usage of how people were like initially when ChatGPT had just launched, everyone was like, "This will do everything," and that was just the GPT-3 model. And eventually, people were like, "Okay, maybe it can't do this." People are still experimenting. There are still great stuff that is happening, but ultimately it will be down to few key use cases and JTBDs, and beyond that it will be again augmented work, like you're using one AI and then another AI and then clubbing those things together. Again, the metaphor of photography kind of works really well here.
yeah.
So when Photoshop came, everyone was like, it'll kill photography. When
Hmm.
Photoshop AI came, again people were like, it'll kill photography. But it is just augmenting it. Some part of it you do by clicking a picture, some part of it you do by editing manually, some of it you do with like using AI and all of that jazz. So that will always be the trend. It'll just change the level of intelligence that humans are using. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, artificial intelligence will always trail as compared to human intelligence.
Hmm.
And that kind of puts us in a very bad position because we always have to be the more intelligent one out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is how you will be able to save your job. You have to kind of always
Yeah.
outsmart AI in the work you do.
Yeah. I want to bring in another example here. So we have hand looms and we have power looms, right? And this is something that I've just understood while shopping for marriage. Right? So I have realized that things that are made with power looms are very perfect. The design of the saris and all are very perfect in nature and are low cost apparently, right? But then the ones that are made with hand looms, which is like actually somebody doing the manual work, is actually very high cost and they are imperfect. And that imperfection is what makes it super expensive apparently. And then obviously most of the time you won't find a second piece of that handloom, but you would find a lot of piece of the same power loom saris, right? Which makes me think whether this is something which is going to also happen in you know digital products as well, wherein a man-made product made with hands is more luxurious or perceived to be of a higher status than something that is made by AI, right? Or do you think that is not going to play out in digital space?
I think it'll play out in digital space, actually in future in a lot of ways. Firstly, it'll definitely increase the value of human made paintings significantly. Sure, AI is able to do art and create whatever, but now a painting that has been created by hand, and the fact that like nowadays some people brag about it, right? Like even some of our batchmates are doing that, like he, oh dude, which prompt did you use? And then they are like, bro, I used airbrush. I think you know who I'm quoting here, and I
Yeah,
think I also
no,
know.
Satya was injured in this discussion.
Yeah. So that is going to be a flex, the fact that
Yeah,
you did it by your own two hands. And ultimately if a painting gets sold for crores and crores of rupees, now we'll be like, yeah, that makes sense, a person made it. So that will always be there. And this time in design up, a friend of mine was mentioning that there was this guy who had like a disclaimer on the slides that no AI was used in creating it. Like the fact that at such a stage, that is a flex, that itself tells us what the trend is going to be.
Hmm.
And I'll close with this particular question with this beautiful thing that happened to me personally in NID. So in the foundation classes, I think we were among the worst people when it came to drawing skills. And
I don't know about you. I was the second worst, I know.
yeah, I didn't do too well either. But coming from my mechanical engineering days, I was trying to make everything perfect. I said time laga ke like everything and that. So we had to create this eye thing.
Yeah.
And at that time, I went to the faculty Chakradhar, and I'm like, okay, sir, this is there. He like, you used a rounder and you did all of that thing. This is a very like meticulously done eye, great job, but it's still not giving that. He's like, leave all your tools, do it by hand, and the imperfections that will follow, that will make it resemble an actual eye,
Hmm.
because the imperfections actually make it human, and that is what gives it value. And yeah, I technically haven't touched a ruler or a scale since then, but yeah, I think that's definitely going to be the case in future.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. And I feel like a lot of people are talking about taste also, right? I feel that's where a lot of taste is going to incline towards, which is, you know, we don't want so much of structure and alignment and whatnot, right? And we saw in the middle also somewhere, I think 1 year back, anti-design became a trend, which is like we don't want to follow the Swiss design of, oh, everything is aligned, then there is this type hierarchy, and then there is a visual hierarchy, all the gestalt and whatnot is all followed, right? People suddenly started saying that we just don't want to follow the rules and we want to break that and, create a different design trend, which is anti-design. Actually, anti-design has always existed with different names throughout art. So I mean, every once in a while it will just, the cycle will turn and something will just come up, this is anti-design, right? So
That's
that,
that's always there, right? Like either you follow the rules to make something that is high production, like your cars itself. You
yeah,
have your Marutis and your Suzukis, and then you really double down on rules but are hyper creative to break them also. And then you have your innovative F1 cars and the racing cars and hyper cars, where all of that innovation happens and then it trickles down to the production. And
yeah,
then there are these places which may be anti-design or whatever they might be called, where they're like, screw everything, we'll just make a square wheel, let's literally reinvent the wheel, and they'll come up with something that is so drastic and so ugly, but that will be the future. So
yeah.
yeah, I think anti-design is essentially just a cool term for innovation, or should I say unhinged innovation.
Hmm, that is true. So I'll ask this last question, at least the pre-decided question, which is how has been your experience with designing for Copilot and working on search at Microsoft?
Whew, it has been a very interesting experience. So, again, at the start of my design journey, I was a bit too judgmental towards myself, and I was like, if ever there is so much documentation and so much technicalities, I don't know if I will be able to survive. But when I joined Microsoft, I was given like this 10 volume ऐसा book ऐसे manager ने रख दिया मेरे टेबल पे, like metaphorically speaking, because at the time I COVID was going on and it was all online, and
Hmm.
then I had to read so much stuff to understand the technology that I'll be working on. So a lot of it, a lot of the time that I had to spend was spent on learning, first the technology, then the user. And search is a very complicated thing. It seems simple, but there are so many parameters, and ultimately the goal is to bring you the most relevant thing on top, and then the order follows. So
Yeah.
understanding of what relevance is, what high confidence to low confidence experiences are, and how do you plug different things in that list. So despite seemingly simple, it is a very complicated thing, but it is something that tells you a lot about how machines work and how humans think. So insights about filter usage, insights about what links are getting clicked and all stuff like that. It has always been like intriguing. And then when the Copilot stuff started, again, I think the beautiful thing about Microsoft is immediately when the Copilots started and LLMs were a thing, there was this particular person, Josh, yeah. So he basically gave a talk at so many forums at so many levels. What LLMs are, what can they do, and there was so much focus on learning that, again, I think the whole learning that is common knowledge now, by the virtue of being in Microsoft, having access to that, and by my own volition of being in those calls, I had been in that guy's same lecture 4 times just to understand and like repeatedly hammer that. So
Hmm.
I think ultimately, long story short, the point that I'm saying that it has been a learning experience, and fundamentally, what I've learned is that you have to be an aggressive learner.
Yeah.
So meta learning हो गई यहाँ पे. So that is there. Then I think the other aspects of it is focusing on privacy, focusing on doing the things the right way, and making sure that you have a certain degree of respect towards anyone, like your user, your colleagues, your engineers, and everyone, so that you don't just have to empathize with the user, you have to empathize with the PM who's trying to get the thing to the user in time. You have to
Yeah.
empathize with that engineer who's working on these complex things to actually build what you have designed. You have to empathize with each and every person in that process to deliver a commonly agreed goal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think culture wise, everyone knows Microsoft definitely leads the pack. uh, and yeah, maybe it'll be a longer talk if we have to talk about what the experience for building in such a big org for Copilot has been like.
Hmm.
But in a nutshell, very challenging and very fun, and all in the right ways.
Got it. Yeah, I mean that's very well captured. Actually, I mean there were so many things that you talked about, and it was very concise. So yeah, kudos. And obviously, you can't really talk about everything because I'm pretty sure there is still more things, around how to work in a what cross geographic company, right? So I feel that's that's a different chapter altogether. That could be a different stream altogether. But
Yeah.
keeping our focus on AI, I think we are done with some of the questions that we had decided to pick up. Let's see what we have in the comments. I saw a lot of people being super fanboy of you, Anudesh. They're saying like, um, they're like really mind blown by some of the things that you have said. So
Good.
yeah, let me see if there are any questions. And if you guys have not shared any question, this is the time for you to share. So Kishore has this question: how you and your team is using Copilot to design Copilot AI related experiences. Also curious to know if you're using AI to build quick prototypes or MVP to test with users.
That's a really good question. So we are using Copilot in a lot of ways to enable our design. Primarily, again, to do like the heavy lifting. Like one of my favorite examples that I kept repeating in this call was uh, the summarization of meeting notes. I literally had like 3 user interviews today, and I did not make any notes. I mean, I do
Hmm.
have a habit of scribbling, and I'm sure some people did notice. Like I had a pen even in this call. I don't know why, but yeah, I did not. I make too many notes, and yeah, I recorded all the calls, transcribed that, and did all of that. So that is one. Secondly, AI is a very good replacement of lorem ipsum. So
Hmm.
instead of writing that, like putting that text, how about you give some context to AI? Like there was this time where I was creating a search page, And essentially what I did was, imagine that you are a corporate enterprise search tool, and you have information available from all of these places, and this user comes to you and searches for this particular query. Now, give me the top 10 results with the description, the date modified, and all of the fields that were available. And this is the variety that I should have. And it gave
Hmm.
me some beautiful, like, these things. And then when I converted that into, like, added those two screens, again, the design was mine, the work was mine, everything was mine. The only thing that I made AI do was put the sample text there,
Yeah.
and that itself increased the value of the point that I was driving, to the extent that people were genuinely convinced that it was something that was already developed.
Hmm.
So that is one of the most powerful ways. Well, like, funnily enough, it seems like dumb thing, but it has a good impact.
Yeah.
Then build quick prototype MVPs. I mean, with the kind of engineering mind force that Microsoft has, um, they are already doing all of these things, and they probably even have these models that are custom trained for their work. So, as a designer, I am not doing, but there are designers who are pursuing that. But as far as I know, that they are doing as a side project or a hobby thing, but we don't do it like a part of the process because it's not necessary. Again, if you have geniuses in coding, then again, I think it's better to do what you are good at and let them do what
Yeah.
they are good.
Yeah. Definitely. So there's this one more comment, which is there was one newsletter by Jacob Nielsen where he shared about different AI models, what has been good part in each one of the AI models. Okay, so somebody, not somebody, Jacob Nielsen, the second god of UX, right? He has compiled a list apparently. So yeah, please share it with us, maybe in the community, so we could, you know, learn from that. But one thing I feel problematic about that list is it may not be dynamic, right? It might have been written in 2024 May, April, but 2024 October is a different beast altogether, right? So everybody has now released something new within their models. So yeah, I mean that's always difficult to, you know, catch up with. You have to be always looking at what is current, right? Anything that is 3 months old is actually old. So yeah, what do you think about this? Like, do you also try to keep up with all the changes, or how is it for you?
It is definitely hard to keep up with all the changes outside in the industry as it is to keep up with the changes in Microsoft itself. Like, nowadays, so back in the day, like, before Copilot era, and it's so funny that even we are referring to it as like back in the day. But before the AI revolution, we had a standard design system which was a static thing, used to get updated like every 3 months. The craziest thing that you could do was, क्या बोलते हैं उसे, unlink the component.
Oh
So
wow.
all
Yeah.
of that was happening, like, those were the easy days. Now there is no design system. There is, like, sure, there is that original design system, but what design language are we following, even that keeps changing every 3 months. Like,
Mm,
if you just look at what Copilot looked like at every 2 month interval, you'll be surprised ki, holy shit, the level of changes that a company like Microsoft, a behemoth like Microsoft, did. It's crazy. So keeping a track of all of these things is very hard and a very important thing to do. So what I do in this case is really just I have some internal places where I keep looking at updates, and like every now and then I'll just see what they're doing. And whenever I'm exploring, I make sure that I'm aligned with that. So that is internal. Externally, again, I have some favorites that I kind of keep going to. And of course, I have to keep a track of what ChatGPT is doing, what Gemini is doing, what Perplexity is doing, what Claude is doing. And of course, what Copilot is doing, because it's a big company, and
yeah.
a lot of times we are so deep into our work, there's like another stream that is going on. So that simply just translates to going on those companies pages, seeing if they have an update. And ChatGPT blog is something I follow religiously.
I
So
see.
just an update, like I think they have done something that is very similar to Copilot pages.
Hmm.
So that was recently released.
Yeah,
So yeah,
Canvas, right?
yeah, Canvas.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, the concept of Canvas was something that uh, I had explored, some another designer independently had explored themselves in Redmond. Someone in the Europe team also did that. And in one of the discussions, we kind of bumped into similar solution. And the stuff that is essentially happening on Copilot on Word.
Hmm.
So a lot of people are going towards those things, and kind of when you're so deep into this space, right, you kind of know कि अब अगला क्या होना चाहिए.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of who does it first
Yeah.
and who does it well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just good to keep a track of these things. And
Hmm.
ऐसे निराश नहीं होते अगर कोई दूसरा पहले कर लेता है. We are more like कि चलो ठीक है, they did it, now let's see did they do it right.
Hmm. Yeah, I think with so much stake of Microsoft in OpenAI, I don't think you would feel like somebody else has done it. It's almost like your sister company now.
Even these things are constantly developing, dude. I have lost track.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like one fine day Satya will come on stage and say like what OpenAI, will be like what OpenAI. If Satya he comes on stage and says OpenAI, we'll say OpenAI. So that that's how automated I have made that part of my brain, because I want to focus on other parts.
Yeah, that's so true. That is a very enlightening session for me. I don't know about chat. Chat is not replying how the session was. A lot of people have said it is good, but the few people who are left on the chat right now, they have not replied. But I'll assume that it has been so good that they were speechless. So-
Hey, they were
but
they were mesmerized, if you remember that
mesmerized,
joke
yeah,
from.
stunned. But yeah, man, thank you so much for joining in. Maybe we'll bring in some other topic some other time, but for the time being, thank you so much for talking so much about AI, which is a super current topic, a super searched topic right now on internet. So thanks for bringing in all the knowledge from Microsoft and all your knowledge around AI.
Thanks for having me, Bharat. This was a fun session.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also got to learn a lot of things, and also the curiosity that people have. So
Yeah.
yeah, uh, thanks again, man.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll just take a bit of time to close this. But yeah, I'll switch off your video for now. And yeah, cool. All right. So that was the conversation around AI ethics and design. And that was Anudish for you from Microsoft. I have given his LinkedIn link in the description of this video. So you can go ahead and follow him, send him a request, and whatnot. Also on Instagram, if you go to my profile, you can find the link to his profile, or you can search for at the rate a new dish, not new dish, a dot new dot dish, a dot new dot dish. I'll just type it here so that you don't write. uh, so this is to follow him on Instagram, so definitely check out his uh, stuff as well on LinkedIn and on Instagram. So yeah, that is the session. If you have any more question, ping me in the WhatsApp group. I mean, don't ping me, just write it in the WhatsApp group and we'll see. In fact, Anudish is part of, I think, community 2, if I'm not wrong. So you can tag him, or you can just put it in the community 2 if you're part of it. And yeah, so thank you so much for joining in, and I hope you had a good time. So yeah, bye bye.